The starport of Valon Prime was alive with noise and movement. Ships from across the galaxy came and went, their engines glowing as traders, travelers, and mercenaries filled the crowded docking bays. Among them walked an aging man in a plain coat, his boots heavy against the metal floor. His name was Elias, once a commander in the Terran Defense Forces. Now, years after the wars had ended, he lived quietly, carrying the weight of memories that refused to fade. He had come here only to deliver a shipment of medical supplies for a small colony. Work like this kept him busy and far from the shadows of old battlefields. But even in peace, the faces of those he had lost returned to him in dreams. He walked through the port with his eyes lowered, wanting nothing more than to finish his task and leave. It was then that he felt someone watching him. At first he ignored it, thinking it was only the usual suspicion toward humans in alien space. But the feeling grew stronger, as though a presence followed his steps. Elias stopped near a cargo terminal and turned. Standing only a short distance away was a tall figure, cloaked and silent, its strange eyes fixed on him. The figure stepped forward. The cloak shifted, and beneath it, Elias saw an alien he had not encountered in many years. The skin was dark, almost metallic in color, and the eyes glowed faintly like twin embers. The being carried itself with both caution and purpose. Elias's hand almost reached for the pistol on his belt, out of old habit, but the alien raised. "One hand in peace, human," the alien said in a voice low but steady. "Do you recall me?" Elias frowned. The voice was strange, shaped by a mouth not human, but there was a sharpness in it, a familiarity that unsettled him. "Do I know you?" Elias asked, his tone guarded. The alien took another step closer, its eyes never leaving his. "Long ago in battle, you saved me." The word struck Elias like a sudden blow. He blinked, searching his memory. Faces, screams, fire and smoke rushed back into his mind. He remembered endless fights on shattered worlds, enemies charging, allies falling. He had saved many, lost many, and sometimes spared those he did not need to kill. Could this creature be one of them? "I fought many battles," Elias said, his voice rough. "I don't remember saving you." The alien inclined its head, almost like a bow. "But I remember you. Your choice changed everything for me." Silence stretched between them as the noise of the starport carried on around them. Elias studied the alien more carefully. He recognized the armor beneath the cloak, worn and scarred, belonging to the Kalith, a species that had once fought bitterly against humanity. For years their armies clashed. Their fleets tore each other apart. To most soldiers, a Kalith was a sworn enemy. To Elias, this one was a reminder of the chaos he wished to forget. "I don't know what you want," Elias said finally, "but those wars are over. I'm done with them." The alien's expression was unreadable, but its voice carried a quiet intensity. "Wars may end, human, but debts do not vanish. I have searched for you across many systems. I needed to find you. I needed you to know." Elias shifted uneasily. He had never cared for being called a hero. He had done what he thought was right in moments when choices were impossible. To him, saving a wounded enemy had been instinct, nothing more. Yet, to this alien, it was something far greater. "Why now?" Elias asked. "Why after all this time?" The alien's eyes glowed brighter, and for a brief moment Elias thought he saw sorrow in them. "Because danger rises again. My people face a threat we cannot stop alone. And I remembered the human who showed mercy, the human who saw more than an enemy on the battlefield. I remembered you." Elias felt his chest tighten. He had come here for peace, for distance from old battles, but now the past had found him again, standing in front of him in the form of a former enemy. He turned his gaze away, staring at the busy docks where ships launched into the endless stars. He wondered if fate had ever truly let go of him, or if war would always follow wherever he went. The alien waited, silent, giving him time. Elias finally met its gaze again, the words still echoing in his mind. "Do you recall me? Long ago in battle, you saved me." For the first time in many years, Elias did not feel like a forgotten soldier walking alone. He felt the weight of choice, pressing down once more, as if the galaxy itself had opened an old chapter and handed it back to him. And though he said nothing more, deep inside Elias knew. His life was about to change again. Elias followed the alien into a quieter section of the starport, far from the crowded markets and docking bays. The noise of traders and starship engines faded behind them, leaving only the hum of lights above. The alien walked with steady purpose, its tall frame moving silently, its cloak brushing the metal floor. Elias stayed cautious, his hand never too far from his belt. But some strange pull kept him from leaving. He wanted to understand why this being had sought him out after so many years. The alien stopped near a narrow passage and turned. "I am Kale," it said, lowering its hood. Its face was sharper than Elias remembered of the Kalith, with ridges along the cheekbones and glowing eyes that carried something human eyes could never hold. Memory like fire, burning but calm. "Kale," Elias repeated slowly. "So you know me, but I don't know you." Kale nodded once. "That does not surprise me. For you it was only a moment. For me it was the turning of my life." Elias frowned. "Tell me." Kale's gaze drifted toward the floor, as if the memory hurt to recall. "It was during the siege of Varos IV. Our forces had been driven into the ruins of the city. I fought, there, a young soldier filled with rage. The fighting was brutal. When I fell, I was bleeding, weapon gone, and I waited for death. Then you came. You had every reason to finish me, every order told you to, but instead you carried me to shelter. You stopped my bleeding. You gave me water, and then you left me." Elias searched his own memory. The siege of Varos IV had been one of the bloodiest fights of the war. He remembered smoke, broken towers, and the screams of both human and alien. He had saved many wounded, both friend and stranger, sometimes not even knowing why. Was Kale among them? Perhaps. But even if he could not recall, the truth was plain, in the alien's eyes. "I don't remember," Elias admitted, "but I believe you. I did things in those days I cannot explain." Kyle raised his head. "You chose mercy when no one else would. You taught me something my people never taught me, that an enemy is not always only an enemy." The word struck Elias harder than he expected. He had lived so long with guilt, questioning his choices, wondering if his mercy had cost lives. Yet here stood proof that one act had changed someone forever. Still, he did not understand. Why tell me this now? Why follow me across stars just to remind me of something I don't even recall? Kale's expression darkened. "Because the galaxy changes, and my people are in danger. There is a threat rising, one older than any, war between our kinds. My leaders will not act, and the other races are too divided to stand together. I remembered you, Elias. I remembered the human who saw me not as a foe, but as a life worth saving. And I thought, if one human could do that, perhaps humanity is what we need now." Elias felt a heaviness in his chest. He had sworn never to return to war. He carried too many scars, too many ghosts already. But Kyle's words refused to leave him. If what the alien said was true, then turning away could mean more lives lost, more destruction like the kind he had seen before. "You think humanity can help?" Elias said slowly. "Why? We're no better than the rest. We've fought, killed and destroyed as much as anyone." Kale shook his head. "Yes, humans destroy, but you also choose. You fight with reason, with heart, even when hope is gone. My people do not understand this. Machines cannot predict it. That is why you are dangerous, and why you are needed." Elias studied him carefully. Kyle was not begging, nor trying, to flatter him. His voice carried only truth, the kind that weighed heavily. Elias looked away, staring at the starport walls, wishing he could simply walk out and leave this behind. But deep inside, he felt the stir of something he thought had died long ago. The call of duty, the voice that asked him to stand once more. "I'm no commander anymore," Elias muttered. I'm just a man trying to live in peace. Kale's reply was quiet but firm. So was I once. Peace will not last unless we fight for it. You taught me that, human. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence between them carried, the weight of battles fought and futures uncertain. Finally, Elias sighed and turned back to Kale. If I hear more, Elias said, if I understand what this threat is, then maybe I'll decide. But don't think I'll jump into another war without knowing the truth. Kale inclined his head. That is all I ask, to listen. And with that, Elias realized that his life, once simple and quiet, had begun to change again. The alien who remembered him had brought back not only the past, but also the possibility of another fight, one that might shape the fate of many worlds. The small transport ship drifted out of Valon Prime's orbit, its engines humming gently. Elias sat in the co-pilot's seat, his arms crossed, staring at the stars, stretching into the endless black. He told himself he should not have agreed to board this ship, but something inside him had refused to walk away. Kyle stood at the controls, guiding the vessel with practiced hands, the glow of alien symbols reflecting across his face. For a long time, silence filled the cabin. Elias finally broke it. You said your people face a danger. What exactly is it? Kale's eyes flickered toward him, then back to the stars. It is not easy to explain. The threat is not an empire, not a fleet. It is older. My people call it the Veilborn. Machines, but not like the ships or tools you know. They are alive in their own way. They were built long before my people walked. The stars. We buried them deep beneath our worlds, thinking they would never rise again. Elias leaned forward, frowning. Machines buried under your worlds? And now they're waking up? Kyle nodded. They stir again. We have seen their shadows on the edges of our systems. Colonies vanish overnight. Entire outposts fall silent. My leaders argue, delay, pretend it will pass. But I know it will not. Elias stared at him, trying to measure the truth in his words. He had seen enough lies in war to know when someone was hiding something, but Kale's voice carried no trickery. It carried fear, real fear, buried under the weight of control. So you come to me, Elias said slowly, because you think humans will do what your own people won't? Yes, Kale said without hesitation. Humans are different. I learned that on Varus 4 when you spared me. You make choices no other species makes. You fight with heart, even when reason says to surrender. The Veilborn cannot understand that. Machines predict patterns, but they cannot predict the human. Will? Elias shook his head, bitterness in his voice. You speak of humans like we are something greater. But I remember what we did in those wars. We killed. We burned. We broke entire worlds. If we are so different, then why did we cause so much ruin? Kale's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Because you are both destroyers and protectors. No other race holds both truths so strongly. That is why you terrify the galaxy, Elias. That is why you give me hope. Elias fell silent, his jaw tightening. He wanted to argue, but the words would not come. Deep inside, he remembered the desperate choices he had made. The moments where mercy had cost him and yet still felt right. Maybe Kale was right, maybe not. He did not know anymore. The ship's console beeped softly, drawing Kale's attention. We approach the border, he said. From here, we head toward my homeworld. You will see with your own eyes what I mean. Elias looked out at the stars again, wondering if he should have stayed behind. He was no commander now, no hero, just a man carrying too many ghosts. And yet the idea of turning back felt wrong. Hours passed as the ship crossed the void. Elias tried to rest, but memories of the past would not leave him. He remembered soldiers crying out for help he could not give. He remembered the weight of decisions that sent men to die. And he remembered the look of Kale's eyes when he spoke of mercy. For years, Elias had questioned if his choices had meaning. Now perhaps he was starting to see they had shaped more than his own life. At last, Kale spoke again. His voice was softer now, almost uncertain. Do you regret it? Saving me that day? Elias turned his head, surprised by the question. I regret many things, he said after a pause. But not that. If I had killed you, you would be another shadow on the list I already carry. At least this way I see something living that came from it. Cale gave a slow nod, and for the first time since they met, a faint smile crossed his alien features. It was small, almost hidden, but real. The ship entered a new system, stars bright against the dark. Elias leaned closer to the window, watching as a distant world came into view. Even from afar he saw its surface scarred with broken cities and blackened ground. Cale's voice was heavy when he spoke. My home. Once filled with towers of light, now ruined. The Veilborn awoke here first. Elias felt a cold weight settle in his chest. This was no simple story, no lie to draw him back into war. This was real. The enemy was real. And though he said nothing, he knew one truth. He was already too deep to walk away. The ship descended through the heavy clouds of Cale's homeworld. Lightning flashed across the sky, and the land below stretched like a wound across the planet's surface. Ruined cities lay in silence, their towers broken and bent like bones, jutting from the earth. Fires burned in scattered places, and vast craters scarred the ground where battles had once raged. Elias leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. He had seen war-torn worlds before, but something about this one unsettled him. It was not the destruction itself, but the unnatural stillness that followed. Cities should have been full of survivors or soldiers, or at least movement of life. Here, only silence ruled. Kyle guided the ship lower, his hands steady but his jaw tight. This was my home, he said quietly. I was born in those towers, raised among the streets now lying in ruin. My people once thrived here. Now it is nothing but ash. Elias said nothing. Words felt empty when faced with such devastation. He only watched as the ship circled a vast ruin, landing near a shattered plaza where statues had crumbled into dust. 30. Ramp lowered and hot wind swept inside. Carrying the smell of smoke and metal, Elias stepped out, his boots crunching against broken stone. Kyle followed, standing tall though his shoulders carried the weight of grief. They walked through the ruins together. Broken machines lay half buried in the ground, their designs unlike any Elias had seen. Some were small, like insects of metal, their sharp legs twisted and bent. Others were larger, monstrous shapes with hollow eyes and jagged arms. Elias knelt near one, brushing away ash. Its surface was smooth, black, and strange, with patterns that pulsed faintly even though it was dead. These are the Veilborn? Elias asked. Cale nodded. Only fragments. The true machines move below the surface. These are their tools, their hunters. They come in waves. When the last survivors fought here, the ground itself opened, and the machines swallowed everything. Elias stood, scanning the empty streets. He could almost feel eyes watching from the shadows, though nothing moved. His soldier's instinct told him this world was not dead, it was waiting. They passed what had once been a temple, its walls covered in carvings. Elias paused, running his fingers along the marks. The images showed tall beings shaping fire, building machines, then burying them deep under the earth. My ancestors, Cale said, his voice low. They created the Veilborn long ago, tools to serve them. But the machines grew too strong, too free. They turned against their masters. So my ancestors buried them in prisons beneath the ground. For centuries they slept. We thought they would never rise again. Elias turned toward him. But now they have. Cale's glowing eyes met his. Yes. And my leaders refuse to face it. They fear the truth. They argue that to admit their return is to admit the sins of the past. So they wait. They hope the danger will fade, but it will not fade. It grows stronger every moment. Elias felt anger stir in him. He had seen the same before. Leaders too blind or proud to act until it was too late. Too many lives lost because of fear, because of waiting. He clenched his fists. I swore I would never return to war, Elias said, his voice heavy. I gave enough. But looking at this, I wonder if I have a choice. Kyle studied him closely. You always have a choice. That is what makes you human. You chose to save me once even when war demanded otherwise. You can choose again now. Elias looked out at the ruins, the broken towers stretching against the dark sky. Memories of his own battles returned, sharp and painful. He remembered the faces of those who had fallen because of him, or despite him. For years he had questioned his mercy, wondered if saving one life had cost many others. Do you know, Elias said slowly, how many of my own men died because I hesitated in battle? Because I tried to choose mercy? I still see them in my dreams. I still hear their voices. Sometimes I think saving you was a mistake. Cale's eyes did not waver, and yet here I stand. If I had died, I would be nothing but dust in these ruins. Instead, I found meaning. I stand here because of you. Perhaps some of your men died because of mercy. But perhaps mercy is also the only thing that keeps us from becoming the very machines we fight. The words cut through Elias, sharp and true. He turned away, unwilling to let Cale see the storm in his eyes. They walked deeper into the ruins until they reached a vast crater where the ground had split apart. Metal walls glistened inside, stretching downward into endless darkness. Elias stared, realizing this was no natural wound. It was a doorway. Their prison, Cale said softly. Broken open. From here they rise. Elias stared into the abyss, his jaw tightening. Whatever waited down there was beyond imagination, and yet he knew one thing for certain. This was not a fight Cale's people could survive alone. Perhaps no one could. And as the hot wind blew across the ruins, Elias felt the weight of choice pressing down on him once again. The crater stretched like a wound across the land, its walls glowing faintly as if something beneath still breathed. Elias stood at the edge, staring into the darkness below. The air carried a low hum, a vibration that made the hairs on his arms rise. It was not the sound of wind or earth. It was the sound of machines alive and waiting. Cale stepped beside him, his voice low. This is where they broke free. My people fought here until the ground itself gave way. The Veilborn opened their prison and poured into the world. Elias narrowed his eyes, the soldier in him awakening despite the years of silence. You said your leaders will not face them. Why? Kyle's expression tightened. Because to face them is to admit our ancestors created them. Pride blinds us. Fear weakens us. And so my leaders close their eyes while the enemy grows stronger. Elias turned away from the crater, scanning the ruins. If that's true, then your people are already lost unless someone acts. Yes, Cale answered firmly. That is why I sought you. You carry no ties to our shame. You see the truth as it is, and you lead with more than orders. You lead with will. Elias exhaled slowly. For years he had tried to bury the soldier within him, to live as a man free of war. But looking into the abyss below, he knew peace had only been an illusion. The galaxy never stayed quiet for long. There was always another enemy, another threat. Tell me more, Elias said finally. If I am to believe you, I need to know what we are facing. Cale gave a sharp nod. He guided Elias toward a broken command post on the edge of the ruins. The structure leaned at an angle, its walls cracked, its roof half gone. Inside, faint light still flickered from alien consoles powered by emergency cells. Cale activated a display, and images filled the room, holograms of shifting black forms, machines that looked like swarms of insects, serpents of metal, and towers that moved like living giants. Elias stepped closer, studying the shapes. They were not like any machines he had fought before. They had no clear weapons, no simple structure. They were adaptable, flowing, alive in ways that unsettled him. They evolve, Cale explained. Every battle makes them stronger. Every enemy they fight teaches them more. The first time we faced them, they came in simple forms, crawling machines with sharp limbs. The next time they were faster, harder, learning to counter our weapons. Soon after, they sent larger ones, machines that could tear through our shields. Now they spread into the stars, consuming as they go. Elias frowned. Machines that learn, that adapt. That means fighting them the same way twice won't work. Exactly, Kyle said. That is why we need humans. You fight without patterns. You change when no one expects it. You make choices that no machine can predict. Elias felt Kale's eyes on him, waiting for an answer. He crossed his arms, staring at the dark images. You want me to lead your people, to rally them against this thing. Kyle hesitated, then spoke with care. Not just my people, others too. The Veilborn will not stop with us. They will spread to every world, every system. If we fight alone, we are doomed. But if humanity joins us, if others join, we may still stand a chance. Elias was quiet for a long time. He thought of the Terran wars, of alliances made and broken, of the endless cost of leadership. He thought of the men and women who had followed him before, trusting him, dying under his command. He had sworn never to lead again. Yet here stood Kyle, alive only because of one moment of mercy, asking him to choose once more. Even if I agreed, Elias said slowly, I'm just one man. I have no army, no ships, no command. Kale's eyes glowed brighter. But you have something more important. You have a name. Among your people, among mine. Stories of you still live. Soldiers remember. Survivors whisper. You are the human who showed mercy in war. That is greater than an army. It is a banner. Others will follow if you lead. Elias turned away, his jaw tight. He hated the thought of being a symbol. He had never sought glory, only survival, only choices he could live with. Yet he knew Kale spoke truth. The galaxy remembered him differently than he remembered himself. He looked back at the images of the Veilborn. Swarms of shifting machines, endless and cold. A threat that no one else dared face. His heart pounded with the old rhythm of command, the call he had buried. At last he spoke. If I do this, it won't be for glory, it won't be for pride. It will be for survival, for life itself. Kyle placed a hand on his shoulder, firm and respectful. That is all I ask, Elias. To choose life, when others choose silence. The room grew quiet. Only the hum of the console filling the air. Elias knew the path before him was set. He had tried to run from war, but war had found him again. The difference now was that he understood the weight of his choices better than before, and somewhere deep inside, the soldier within him stirred, ready to rise once more. The days that followed were filled with motion. Elias had expected resistance when Kale spoke of gathering others, but to his surprise, whispers spread quickly across the stars. Old soldiers, smugglers, explorers, even traitors who had once served. In war, all of them heard the call. Some came because of fear, others because of loyalty, and a few because they believed in the strange story of a human commander who had spared an enemy. Elias found himself standing once more in front of fighters who looked to him for guidance. They met in hidden ports and forgotten outposts, their ships worn but ready. The smell of fuel and iron filled the air, and the murmur of voices grew whenever Elias entered a room. He felt the weight of their eyes on him. He had not asked to lead. Again, yet here he was. He saw humans hardened by years, alien warriors scarred by old battles, and even young pilots with fire in their hearts. They wanted direction. They wanted purpose. And somehow they believed he could give it. Kyle stood beside him always, silent, but steady. It was clear that many of Kyle's own people doubted him, calling him dishonored for standing with humans. But Kale ignored them, his faith in Elias unbroken. One evening, as the gathering grew larger, Elias sat alone inside a dim hangar, staring at a holographic map of Kale's home system. Kale entered quietly, carrying 2 metal cups filled with bitter alien drink. You have their attention, Kyle said, setting one cup near Elias. They are waiting for you to act. Elias rubbed his forehead. That's what I fear. I have led men before, Kale. and I have watched them die. Every order I gave carved scars on me. Now they stand here, willing to follow me again. But if I lead them into death, will I be any different from the machines we fight? Kale placed a hand on the table, his voice calm. You will be different because you give them choice. The machines offer none. You offer a path. That is all a leader can do. Elias looked at him for a long time, then nodded slowly. He turned, back to the map. The Veilborn are spreading. If we hit them head-on, we lose, but if we strike where they are weakest, maybe we can slow them down. So the plan began. They targeted a Veilborn facility on the edge of the system, a sprawling network of towers that pulsed with strange energy. Kyle explained it was a relay, a hub through which the machines communicated. Destroying it might blind them, if only, for a while. The fleet assembled in silence. Human ships patched with old armor, alien craft built for speed, and even freighters fitted with makeshift weapons, all gathered together, unlikely allies bound by fear and determination. Elias stood on the bridge of an old destroyer, his voice steady as he gave orders. Remember, he said over the comms, we don't fight to win today. We fight to remind them we will not be broken. Stay sharp. Stay alive. The battle came, fast. As they dropped from the void near the Veilborn relay, the machines stirred like a nest of wasps. Black shapes poured into the sky, shifting and twisting as they swarmed toward the fleet. Lasers lit the darkness. Explosions thundered as ships collided. Human pilots shouted through static. Alien voices roared in defiance, and the machines moved, with cold precision. Elias guided his forces like a conductor, sending smaller ships to harass the swarms while heavier guns struck at the relay towers. Kale fought at his side, commanding his people with fierce skill. Their voices blended across the comms, human and alien together, no longer enemies but allies in the same fire. Yet the machines adapted quickly. Every maneuver was met with a counter. Ships fell, their flames scattering across the void. Elias felt the old pain rise inside him, the weight of lives slipping through his fingers, but still he pressed forward, forcing himself to trust his instincts. Focus on the towers, Elias commanded. Ignore the swarm. Hit the relay. The fleet obeyed, diving through waves of enemy fire. Explosions tore across the towers, shaking the relay until cracks spread through its surface. The machines howled, their movements frantic now, but Elias pushed harder. Kyle, with me, he shouted. Together they led the charge, their ships striking at the heart of the structure. AR final blast ripped through the relay and the entire network lit up before collapsing in silence. The swarm faltered. The machines drifted without coordination, some crashing into each other, others falling dead in the void. The fleet pulled back, battered, but alive. On the bridge, Elias stood tall, his chest heaving. Around him, the crew cheered, voices filled, with relief and victory. For the first time in many years, Elias felt the fire of triumph, not the empty glory of war, but the spark of survival. Kale approached, his glowing eyes steady. You see now, they can be hurt, they can be slowed. With you, we have hope. Elias looked at him, the weight of the battle still heavy on his shoulders. Hope is a dangerous thing, Kale, but maybe it's all we have left. Outside the windows, the stars stretched endless and cold. The Veilborn were not defeated. They would rise again, stronger, learning from this fight. But for now, the galaxy had struck back, led by a man who once tried to leave war behind. And Elias knew there was no turning back. The days after the battle against the relay were heavy with both hope and fear. The fleet had won, but they knew it was only a small victory. The Veilborn were wounded, not destroyed. Their machines would rise again, and when they did, they would come with more power and more anger. Elias spent long hours in the command room of his ship, studying maps, listening to reports, and speaking with survivors. Each message carried both pride and sorrow. Many had died, but many more had lived because of the stand they made. That truth gave Elias strength to keep moving forward. Kale visited him often, never speaking more than necessary, but his presence was steady. The alien commander carried his own grief, yet held it with quiet dignity. For Kale, the destruction of the relay meant more than just a battle won. It meant his people had a chance to breathe again, to believe that the machines were not invincible. Still, Elias knew the fight was not finished. The Veilborn core still pulsed deep under Kale's homeworld. The ancient machine intelligence had not revealed its full strength yet, and if left unchecked, it would rise to consume everything. A council was held in a hidden chamber beneath the shattered capital city of Kale's planet. Human veterans and alien leaders gathered around a large table. Some looked tired, others doubtful, but all of them understood what was at stake. Elias spoke clearly, his voice carrying across the room. The relay is destroyed, but the core remains. If we strike now, we have a chance to end this threat before it grows stronger. If we wait, we give it time to learn from us, time to adapt. That is a risk we cannot afford. One alien leader asked, "You suggest attacking the core directly? That is suicide. It is buried beneath the surface. The defenses are countless. How can we even reach it?" Elias looked at Kyle. Kyle rose slowly and placed his clawed hand on the table. Because humans are not like us. Machines can predict logic. They cannot predict choice. Elias has shown us this. He is willing to do what others will not. And I will follow him. The council fell silent. Then, one by one, voices agreed. Not all, but enough. A plan was formed, a final strike to pierce the Veilborn defenses and reach the core itself. The following days were filled with preparation. Ships were repaired, weapons readied, and soldiers steeled themselves for what might be their last fight. Elias walked among them, speaking simply, shaking hands, giving small nods of encouragement. He did not promise survival, only that their fight mattered. On the night before the battle, Elias stood outside on the ruined surface of Kyle's planet. The sky was scarred with smoke, but the stars still shone through. Kyle joined him, carrying no armor, only quiet strength. "You should rest," Kyle said. Elias shook his head. "Too many thoughts. Too many ghosts." Kyle looked at him with steady eyes. "Long ago, you saved me on the battlefield. You may have thought it was a small act, but it changed the path of my life. Now you lead not only humans, but also my people. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember this. You have already given us more than we had." Elias gave a faint smile. "Then tomorrow, we finish what we started." The final battle began with fire. The fleet descended through thick storms as machines rose to meet them. Explosions lit the skies and the ground shook as Veilborn defenses opened fire. Ships burned, but the fleet pressed forward. Elias led from the front, his destroyer weaving through fire, striking at weak points, clearing a path for ground forces. Kale commanded beside him, his people shouting with fury as they stormed the surface. Together they pushed through wave after wave, refusing to give the machines time to recover. The ground battle was fierce. Towers of black metal loomed across the horizon, spitting fire and drones into the sky. Soldiers fought in the ruins side by side, human and alien, each protecting the other. At last, Elias and Kale reached the entrance to the core chamber. It was a vast pit descending into glowing darkness, the heart of the machine intelligence. The walls pulsed like veins, alive and unnatural. "We go together," Elias said, gripping his weapon tightly. They descended into the abyss. The chamber's heart revealed itself, a colossal structure of light and steel, with a voice that echoed in their minds. "You cannot stop us. You will fall, as all flesh must." Elias stood firm. "Maybe, but not today." They launched their final attack, blasting through defenses, fighting with every ounce of strength. The machines came in endless waves, but the humans and aliens pushed forward, step by bloody step. Elias knew the only way to win was to destroy the core completely, even if it cost him everything. He broke through the last line and reached the control nexus. With trembling hands, he set the charges, the timer blinking red. Suddenly, a heavy blow struck him, and he fell. The machine drones swarmed, and Elias realized he would not escape in time. But before the final strike came, Kyle appeared, dragging him away with fierce strength. "No," Elias protested. "The charges." Kyle's eyes glowed as he pulled him clear. "You saved me once. Now it is my turn." The chamber exploded with light as the charges detonated. The ground shook, and the machine intelligence screamed as its core shattered. Towers across the planet collapsed, drones fell silent, and the Veilborn threat was ended. In the smoking ruins, Kale carried Elias out, his body battered but alive. The two stood together as the dawn broke over a wounded but free world. Kale looked at him with quiet pride. "Now we are even, human." Elias shook his head weakly, a small smile on his lips. "No, Kale. This was never about debts, it was about choice, and together we chose to fight." The survivors around them raised their voices in cheer, human and alien as one. The machines had been defeated, not by strength alone, but by courage, mercy, and the bond between two former enemies who had chosen to stand together. And so, across the galaxy, the story spread. Humans were dangerous not only because of how they fought, but because of why they fought.